Everybody, the next episode of the Cannabis Review. I'm delighted to be joined in this episode by Mike Goral, who's a partner at Armanino. Mike has been a tax professional since 1989, has a significant experience in federal, state, and local tax from both a legal and a financial perspective. How are you keeping today, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much for taking your time to do this. It's a topic I've wanted to cover for a short bit of time, and no better man than yourself to be able to help give us some guidance on this topic.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Great stuff. Do you maybe want to give out the audience a quick overview in under 30 seconds of how Armanino ended up having a tax division and how you ended up being ahead of the cannabis tax group?
Yeah, I started several years ago, back in 2015, and I noticed that cannabis was going to go state by state, and it was not going to be federally legal for quite some time, and it still is not in the U.S. And so, learned about it, and then wrote the treatise for Thomson Reuters on multi-state cannabis taxation. And so, I'm one of the leading experts in how this industry is taxed across the U.S.
Okay, fantastic. So there's a couple of things that from a European perspective, I'd love to find out about the US tax state by state. So hopefully you're going to be able to help. So first and foremost, why are the taxes so high on a state level? Is it just the governments in the states don't understand how it should be taxed, or it's a part of greed thinking the industry is going to bring in more revenue than it actually does?
Yeah, unfortunately, the states, when they determine, how to tax this industry, instead of taxing it at a very low rate, say alcohol or tobacco, they determine how much revenue do they want to generate from cannabis. Then they figure out how much legal cannabis will be sold that will be taxed, and then they back into the tax rate, which ends up being such a high rate that many cannabis companies are having trouble keeping their business open because the taxes are just so high, and the illicit market is thriving under these conditions.
Okay, interesting. Is there any state that have gotten it right so far, or is everybody doing the exact same mistake that their predecessors have done before them?
Yeah, unfortunately, the newer states that are coming onto the market, such as New York and others, are making the same mistakes. And in New York's case, they're taxing it not on price, but on THC content. And so, there could be some manipulation of, the testing labs to score something with a lower THC, because that means that'll be a lower tax in New York.
Okay, and so when it comes to the news that Governor Gavin Newsom of California basically got rid of a cultivation tax, I think it is, and changed excise tax, what's the big deal with what he did there? And was it a crazy play from the get-go? They're more righting a wrong at the moment.
Yeah, in California, they structured their tax system somewhat like a value-added tax that's used in Europe, and they wanted to tax it all along the way, from cultivation to distribution to manufacturing to finally retail. But at the cultivation level, that was just the tax again was too high. And, now that it's gone away, it's a little, too late kind of scenario for many California cannabis growers, because the price of, wholesale cannabis has gone from, say, $2,000 a pound to now less than $600 a pound. And it costs, many of those growers about that much to produce the product.
Okay, and so does it look like New York seems to be the one that seems to be maybe hopefully getting it right? Or from your perspective, are they making the same tax mistakes that the other states are making?
Yeah, again, New York, decided to use a THC content as their means of taxing this industry at the retail level, and unfortunately, I think that there's just this race to higher and higher THC levels, to come up with a product that has the highest THC, which I think once you get to a certain point, you don't need more THC, and New York wants to tax it based on a THC content. And I don't think that's going to be a solution either, because the price of cannabis, when you buy it legally, is going to be so high compared to the illegal market. And there hasn't been enough enforcement of illegal operators, that I think is still going to be a problem there in New York.
And when it comes to setting the actual percentage of tax, is that down to the governor's office? Is it down to the taxation, like the IRS? Is it down to who exactly decides, right, it's going to be 15% or 12%?
Yeah, and it varies, depending on the different, governments and how they do it. Some of it is done by, committee. Some of it's done at the legislative level. Certainly the governors of each state, has to sign off on all of this. So it goes through many layers of review, but unfortunately, there's too many hands, in this issue, and everybody wants cannabis to pay for all of the different projects and things that they've been wanting to do for years and didn't have the revenue to do. And many state and local governments see cannabis as their savior in this respect.
I would imagine there's a lot of internal battles with the different departments when a state legalizes the industry to see who takes on the revenue. Is the best model to create a new division like, let's say, Colorado's Marijuana Enforcement Division or the Cannabis Bureau in California? Is that the best model, or is it to be integrated into the Department of Health or Department of Cultivate or Agriculture?
Yeah, and there's usually like a grab for power whenever cannabis becomes legal, and all these different agencies want to have their say so in it, and it just further complicates it and makes more regulations added to which is already a very highly regulated business, and it just makes it more difficult for operators to work in this arena. So yeah, it would be great if there was just one centralized, body that you could get all of the regulations done in that area. But, you get environmentalists involved, you get, work safety people involved. There's just so many different, agencies that get pulled into this that it just becomes a nightmare for operators.
And is there anything countries like Ireland and other countries in Europe that can learn from the process and try and ensure that it's a lot more smooth sailing over this side of the pond?
Exactly, and I think what they should do is try to model it as closely as they can to alcohol and tobacco, where you can have operators work in this arena, maybe take advantage of rules and regulations that have already been established for alcohol and tobacco, and then parlay that into cannabis to the extent possible, so that it's just not quite the burden that it is right now.
Okay, next topic I wanted to jump into was basically unpaid taxes in North America. The likes of Matt at MJ Biz and some of the other great articles I've read so far have been highlighted this, and it seems to be both countries, Canada and America, are in the high hundreds of millions of unpaid taxes towards their respective governments. Is this a part of just normal business, or is this something that investors or people look at the industry should be alarmed about running up this level of debt?
Yeah, this has been quite an issue for the industry, and again, the taxes are so high that many of these companies can't pay these taxes with their working capital, and so what they have chosen to do is not pay the tax, and run their business as best they can, and kick the can down the road, and hope that it becomes legal, that these tax assessments at some point get negotiated for a lesser amount, that they work out some sort of an agreement to maybe pay the taxes over a long period of time, say 5 to 10 years, and hoping that their business will then turn around in the interim.
Yeah, so it's more protecting your capital for growth and arguing, let's say, sending the dollar down further down the line. And do you think this is sustainable? I mentioned off air before that it seems to be that this industry, like other industries, will be end up being dominated by a handful of players in the different territories, like chocolate, like crisp manufacturing. There's a various other consumer packaged goods that you could point to this where there's just 2 or 3 big competitors. Was it a case of in this industry that anybody who had capital could get into it, and we're now just seeing the byproduct of the strongest will survive and the weaker companies are the ones falling off, and the ones with good balance sheets and good executive structure and board management are the ones that are going to thrive long term?
Yeah, I see this, being similar to the beer industry. There are going to be some major players. They're going to be worldwide brands that are going to dominate, the majority of the business. But then there will be like craft brewers and others that are smaller that will still, thrive in this industry because, cannabis, affects people differently based on your body composition. And for some people, one product will have a great effect, and another product, that same product for someone else could be, just doesn't do anything for them. And so once someone finds the product that they like and a brand that they like and the effect that they get from that brand, they're going to gravitate to that. And I think those entities will do well, and they could still be acquired by the national and international brands and remain as a small craft producer because you don't want to lose that following and roll it up into a national brand and lose all that marketing power.
Yeah, speaking of brands and marketing power, we see that the kind of top retail prospect over in America, Cookies, have already made some ventures into the European market. I see them being one of the dominant brand names across every single country. I think what Berner has done so far has been pretty phenomenal.
Yes, they're one of our clients, and I started working with them when they had their first dispensary. And now they've become, a worldwide brand and, continuing to grow. And, that's going to be very important in this industry is branding. And just like Coca-Cola and other worldwide brands, once, you can dominate the market with your branding and people, gravitate to that, it's very helpful. I mean, what Cookies is doing is really, promoting a lifestyle. So it's more than just the cookies, cannabis product. They have, clothing and other things that, would be similar to maybe like the Supreme brand that is this urban, lifestyle brand that, gravitates with many younger people.
Yeah, no, as we said, they've been doing phenomenal work so far, and I look forward to the day that Dublin has a cookies store on one of our main streets here. I know you're a very busy man, and I'm not going to keep you much longer. I just wanted to mention about the Cannabis Summit that we've got on next week. Very much looking forward to having your expertise on the panels when we have this event next Saturday on the 25th.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, your first point of Guinness will be on me, and I look forward to meeting in person. But for now, thank you very much for your time, Mike.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.
Until next episode, everybody.